Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a lovely, shiny new year. So 2021, I'm sure 2021 is going to be a better year for us all than 2020 is. That's certainly something we all hope for. So I do wish you all a very happy new year. And a great way to start the year is with our property meeting, and we've got a great lineup for today, as always. So our agenda is I'm going to go through a bit of an introduction, a bit of news and objectives for the first sort of 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. Then, as always, I really do appreciate Sam Norris coming on every month and provides us with a really interesting and informative update on what's happening in the lending market. So that's been really, really valuable to us all the way through. So really appreciate what Sam's been doing all year. We've then got the main presentation tonight is on stamp duty, which sounds a bit sort of dull, and you could many might think, well, why have we got a presentation on stamp duty? And it's not as simple and straightforward as you would believe. And they estimate that a quarter, so 25% of all land tax calculations, stamp duty land tax calculations, are actually incorrect. And they've got some really interesting examples and stories around that. So David Hanna actually founded the business some time ago, and it's a great business. Then there'll be a bit of any questions that we haven't covered during the evening. I'll cover just before 9, and I'll also talk about next month, and then we'll close. We always close around 9 o'clock. So just firstly a bit of housekeeping. The event is recorded, and people do watch it afterwards. So for those who can't make it, so they find that really useful. Also, if you could just stay muted unless you're asking a question. It's also fantastic if you can keep your video on, because it's really good to see people, and so that sort of adds to the community, really. Also, if you could keep mobile phones on mute. You can ask questions through the chat box. The sort of danger there is that I miss it, but I'll do my best not to miss any questions in the chat box. But feel free to ask any questions verbally on the call. And lastly, there's no real individual advice. So the everything you'll hear tonight is of a general consumption. And if you need individual advice from an accountant or tax specialist or lawyer, then you must seek that separately. So the objectives of the call is to provide the people who normally attend our meetup at the Beach House in St Albans. So since COVID, we've moved this to an online Zoom call, and that's had some positive aspects, because we wouldn't normally have presenters, of course. So to keep us informed and provide us with a voice during COVID, and I suspect we'll hit the COVID anniversary this year. Provide an update on some of the changes impacting the property market as a result of the virus and everything we've had to deal with, really. And it's been fantastic learning from industry experts and commentators. So I really appreciate everyone who spoke last year, and everyone who's lined up to talk this year as well. So just a couple of news items. From next month, we will be making a small charge for future meetings just to cover our costs. So it'll only be a couple of pounds, but it will be just to cover the costs. So that's sort of admin staff and Zoom and all that sort of stuff. And the second item is we've got a vacancy for a part-time property manager. So this will be working predominantly with Lisa. So really looking for somebody who's got experience of managing HMOs, single lets. Ideally, if they've got experience of service accommodation, that would be great. Also, just dealing with general maintenance issues. So they must be quite experienced. We would need to they'd need to have experience on the legal sides, because that's getting more and more complicated. And we have got resources to help with that. But there is, for the right person, it's a really good opportunity to work with us and to help manage our portfolio. So we've been growing, and I've got to the point now that it'd be really good to have a property manager who works with us. So you can connect with us on Facebook. So Facebook also holds the document of recommended suppliers, which is really useful for people. We've also got our YouTube channel. So all the recordings of these evenings are edited into individual slots and loaded onto YouTube, so that they are available for you in the future. The main way we really communicate outside of the meetings is through the WhatsApp group, and that's very active, and and really good information sharing goes on there. So of any of our channels, the Facebook or anything, the WhatsApp group is the most active. So just to briefly, what do we do in terms of Lisa and myself? So we have got a few property businesses, actually. One's deals with residential development, so it's part of Alban Property, part of this group. So we own buy-to-lets. We've got HMOs, and most of our buy-to-lets we've moved to service accommodation, sort of holiday letting. So that's quite a key strategy for us. Of course, service accommodation's sort of on its knees at the minute. We have been getting grants. That's been very welcome. And Lisa can talk to you about some of the bookings that we are still getting, some bookings for sort of key workers and in certain limited circumstances. But on the whole, there's not a lot going on service accommodation. We also refurbish residential properties, so develop those. Love working with people. I think that's one of the great joys, actually, of property, because it can be quite lonely. It's great working with people. So we quite often work with builders, investors, developers, other developers, and really enjoy that part of our business, really. And of course, we run this meetup every month. As I said earlier, it normally is a physical meeting. The other side of our business, which Lisa, who's my wife and is on the call, Lisa runs service short stays. So there we manage our own properties for the short-term market. So my background is largely sort of software. So our software is, I don't know anyone who's got any software that runs as well as ours, and it's really robust, actually. So having spent 30 years in the software industry, coding, doing all sorts of things, I know the reliability of software is really, really key, and it tends to not be that reliable. And I've been really pleased with how ours has been performing, actually. It's something I only realised just recently. We also manage and market properties by other landlords, and that is actually, we've had a couple of queries even early in January of landlords wanted to move into service accommodation. So that's quite interesting. So without further ado, I'll just stop my sharing and hand over to Sam. So